This is from Joyce. Are there any trends in relationship compatibility or even types that are generally more drawn to each other? So maybe we start with you, Beatrice, then we'll bounce over here.
I mean, I think sometimes you see a lot of certain kinds of couples, but I don't think that there are any types that are, say, more well suited than others. I think the main variable for suitability in relationship is level of awareness. I think a self-aware person who's really working on themselves and trying to be more conscious is always going to be easier to be in relationship with than someone who isn't. Someone who's, not really working on themselves, not that self-aware, not that interested in being on a growth path. That person, no matter what type they are, is going to be more fixated and just harder to relate to because they're in their patterns and they're not able to see beyond them and kind of get over their ego. That said, sometimes opposites attract, but I've seen people of the same type together lately. So I don't think there's any specific type, and I think any types can be really good together, especially if they're working on themselves.
So in Myers-Briggs, we talk about the difference between a compatibility relationship and a growth relationship. So there's certain types that are more naturally sort of similar in their disposition, and they're highly compatible, but then they end up having a bunch of blind spots in life. And so all of their antagonism ends up being like, I thought you handled that. Well, I thought you handled that. And then on the other side are the types that are growth relationships, which are people who are very different. Yeah, like they're very different in their dispositions, but they usually cover each other's blind spots. And so what they have to do is they have to figure out how to do a lot of like sort of meeting in the middle. And neither one is necessarily that much better than the other. It just sort of depends. And I think I read someplace, it's been a long time. I've been quoting it for like a decade now, so I lost where I read it. But I read that the number one indicator of success in relationships are shared values and interests. So if you have shared values and interests, it doesn't matter what personality type combination you are, because you're able to meet at that place. And then when people grow, when they grow apart, usually what they're growing apart in is that their values have shifted or their interests have shifted. And so that's the biggest predictor. And I think that's the one that I would recommend people focus the most on is interests and values.
Yeah. Sometimes we say something about dominant instinct, like people who have the same dominant instinct can kind of like what you said, they can be more compatible, but it's not necessarily as interesting. People who have different dominant instincts or instinctual sequences, there's more difference, but it can be kind of interesting. Can I say a little bit of something about Enneagram Roadmap and how I think it's the perfect accompaniment to what I spend a lot of my time doing live? My business partner and I offer live inner work retreats. We offer them mostly in San Francisco, London, Cairo in Egypt, Sao Paulo, Brazil, and coming soon, China. And in those inner work retreats, we do deep work with the Enneagram. But we don't really teach the basics. We kind of get right into the deeper work. So Enneagram Roadmap is like the perfect thing to do if you're wanting to do some deep work as a prelude to kind of doing one of our inner work retreats, or even doing one of our professional workshops where we help practitioners learn to use the Enneagram in a deep and accurate way. So we'd love to see you at one of our 5-day programs, but Enneagram Roadmap is really a good thing to do first to kind of, first of all, just, enter into the Enneagram, I think, in a deep way and how it can be used as a growth tool and what the system is all about. But also as an introductory workshop you can do in the comfort of your own home before you come and do something deeper with us, which we'd love to have you do.
Well, and to piggyback on that, Joel was mentioning when we flew Beatrice out again, when we were in Florida to record more content. As you mentioned, we've been listening to that all day long because we've been doing some editing on it. And I had forgotten how good those conversations were because we were talking about things that we were talking about instinctual stacks. So, people have been talking, I'm a self-pres sexual or I'm a social, sexual or whatever, self-pres. And then you just kind of hinted. And then we have the ones that's repressed, right? And in the Enneagram Roadmap, the content that we were creating, you mentioned how it was like a beach ball underneath water. that we do an elaborate balancing act to try to repress it and push it down so we don't have to see it. And so we talked about those things about stacks and what it looks like to have each of those instincts, what it looks like when one of those is your repressed beach ball underneath the water, and what it means to have one that's dominant. And it was
when it explodes.
When it explodes, yeah, because that beach ball will come up sometimes and surface, and what it looks like when your repressed instinct explodes. I mean, it's such good stuff. So that's now in the Enneagram roadmap, or those are being uploaded right now, and they're it's just really amazing content. So I also would like to put my hat in the ring of recommending that right now, because we're releasing Enneagram roadmap right now. It's a really good time to go check out that program. So